the lawyer was Wharton Plummer in that case, who went on to be his lawyer in several later cases, well after he stopped using the name Mudgett. And I think he once described Holmes to the press as the last honest man in America. well, he's also the guy they quoted as saying, he says that the stories about the castle are rot, and this last he qualified with an adjective in common use.
Yes, an adjective
before they had
in
come
common
up with
use.
the phrase expletive deleted. So,
yes, nice.
Good stuff. Well,
that
Adam,
guy, he was as crooked as Holmes.
I didn't give you a proper intro in. Kind of talk about, what you do and that type of thing, and kind of give everybody a heads up as to, obviously your area of expertise there outside of what I said earlier.
All right, yeah, I'm a historian and tour guide here in Chicago. I run a lot of tours. If you go to mysteriouschicago.com, that'll link you to all of the cemetery tours that I do, the occasional weird architectural boat tour, ghost tours in October. I've been in the tour business in Chicago for about 15 years. I also wrote a whole book about HH Holmes. I've done I used to do young adult novels. Now I do true crime for the most part. And I've got a new podcast actually called Cemetery Mixtape. I research stories in cemeteries all over the place, and then a musical guest comes in and adds a song. Most recently, I just went down to Savannah to look for the grave of Button Gwinnett, one of our least illustrious founding fathers.
Nice.
Very cool.
I love the way that you mix your personality with that too, with the historical aspects of it. It's always entertaining to me.
Well, thanks.
So I think, Adam, I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I know you just wanted to get in with the quick Speck story. So if you want to throw out, if you have any other social media or where they can buy the book, feel free. Throw it out there.
Oh, yeah, just check out mysteriouschicago.com or cemeterymixtape.com. That'll show you all of my upcoming tours, the new podcast. There's a new article on Mysterious Chicago right now about the murder in the lake tunnel in 1864.
Nice.
What? Adam's come in.
We literally had murder in the drinking water for a good 70 years.
Oh,
it was all flowing right through a murder site.
Oh.
So that makes guest appearances on HH Holmes, the Gacy episode, Great Chicago Fire, and now just a little tidbit on Richard Speck. I love it, man. And I tell you what, and I can attest to this because when I was doing the Great Chicago Fire research, Adam's podcast is one of the essential listenings. So if people out there are interested in Chicago, and you should be listening to our show because, I mean, like every 2 months we do some Chicago episode. Sorry, Ray, your city's messed up.
Well,
we know.
It makes for good copy.
Yeah, absolutely. But Adam, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you in a few months. How's that sound?
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, bud.
All right,
and Ray, this is going to lead us now to the prison life of Richard Speck. He gets convicted. Was he convicted of all 8 murders? Or was he convicted of
Party. No, I believe he was convicted of all 8.
Okay.
I don't see how they could rule out any one. They were all
just to make sure.
No, they hit him with all 8. I mean, I don't think they were really. I mean, there was a lot going on in the late '60s, legally with the Supreme Court and with defendants' rights, and when you're talking about Miranda, and then you're talking about you had the Kennedy assassination that wasn't too long before that, and you had Ruby being Jack Ruby being shooting Oswald. So I mean there was a lot going on that people were just very overly cautious with Speck. As far as even the police, I mean, it took them a while to even really interview him because of the different rulings about interrogating prisoners and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and his trial didn't take. And I know trials can take time, especially in bigger cities.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
April 3rd, I think it took place. But I mean, it didn't take the jury long. 12 days later to deliberate. I mean, 49 minutes, and they recommended the death penalty. Which
even without DNA, I mean, they had fingerprints, they had an eyewitness, they had they had everything they could possibly have other than the videotape, and. And then later on, obviously, when Bill Curtis had gotten the videotape of him in prison, he admitted to doing the killings on videotape. in front of other prisoners. So.
And this is kind of touched on in Mindhunter. He predated Manson. He was kind of the first, or one of the first rock star kind of, well-known murderers of this ilk. Now, I would put Starkweather before him, but yeah, I mean, he's right up there as far as people that were known across the country after a violent crime spree.
Oh, sure. And he actually, he figured in like American Horror Story, that series. They figured, Speck figured into that. Richard Ramirez. You had like rock star serial killers. Gacy and Speck and Manson and Bundy and what's his face? Kemper, and then what else am I thinking of? It's killing me. The guy, the one that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based off of.
Ed Gein.
That's it, Ed Gein. Yeah. And so he was definitely up there with the. Although again, as far as serial killers, I don't know if he was really a serial killer, more of a spree killer.
Right. Just somebody who committed violent
crimes. Infamous nasty people. Yes.
And he had a lot. And one of the things in common that he did have with serial killers is his violence seemed to be towards women, and women almost exclusively, if I'm not mistaken.
The ones, he'd get in bar fights a lot with guys, so he would get in fights with guys. But as far as killing, he was, as far as we're aware, who knows, but as far as we're aware, it was always women.
So obviously he goes to prison. He's supposed to get the death penalty, but that gets stayed by the, at some point it was stayed by the Supreme Court, I think.
Yes.
So he kind of just sat there. And talk about these prisons there, because they're portrayed as really rough, and they seem to be from the documentaries I've seen. Talk a little bit about it in reference to, what Speck ultimately became.
Oh, you're talking about like the prisons? Prisons are? In Stateville?
We're definitely.
He was in Stateville. Stateville and Joliet are the two major ones at the time. He was at Stateville, but he, the thing is, he pretty much had the run of the place, which is, to me, it's astounding as far as the amount of freedom that he had. Now, granted, you couldn't really. There's nothing you could do to the guy. He's serving up to 1,200 years. At one point he was death, but then it was 400 to 1,200 years he got for the 8 killings. So there wasn't anything that you could really threaten him with, as far as, you better behave, or you'll be here another 1,200 years. So there really wasn't a whole lot you could do as far as discipline. I suppose you could lock him up in a solitary or something. But what was amazing was the amount of stuff that he was that not only him but other prisoners would be able to get access to, the drugs, the moonshine they made there on their own in their cells out of fruit or whatever. And that's a lot of the reasons why they don't serve anything with sugar to the prisoners in prison anymore, is because sugar can be converted to alcohol pretty easily, and so they used to make moonshine in their cells. But the cocaine, the smuggled hormones to have him grow breasts. The guy was twisted. He was just twisted in so many different ways. But the one comment he made kind of got me, was that if they knew how much fun I was having in prison, they would let me out.
And that's the thing. Do you think that was... I know he was portraying himself as having fun, but a lot of people kind of felt like because he had to turn himself in... He basically turned himself into the prison bitch, the queen bee, whatever... what other names can we call it?
He was sick. But he was sick, and he's a sociopath. So it's not, like I said, he doesn't have a conscience. So, was he enjoying it? I don't know. I don't know if a sociopath can actually enjoy anything, because their emotional maturity has been stunted at some point. Whether it was the physical or they mentioned that he had some brain abnormalities, that, he had 2 different sections of the brain, and one controlling extreme emotions was larger than the average person, and whether that's a birth defect or was caused by some sort of damage, we'll never know, because all of those samples that they had taken of them were lost or thrown away or whatever. Something happened to them, but they're non-existent. So, did he have fun? I don't know. I don't know if it was possible for him to have fun, but he obviously said he was having a great time. But
yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of these guys, like Dahmer, they go to prison and then they're a target. And I think that's basically what happened with Speck. So Speck had to change his, I don't know, way of dealing with people. Just putting it lightly.
Putting it lightly, not to get too specific, but yeah, there were things he was doing on videotape, servicing other prisoners and whatnot. So yeah, did he adapt? Possibly. I know he wasn't a weak guy. I mean, he wasn't a small guy. Something tells me he had a little bit of power behind him as far as physical. So I think he could take care of himself. And, even among other prisoners, this guy was kind of a wackazoid. So I don't know how many people would be, I can't see him being picked on necessarily. He didn't murder kids. It was adult women, so it wasn't like he was a pedophile and targeted or a former cop or something like that. So I don't know. I think he did enjoy part of it.
I was just curious. Like different things portray it differently, and knowing this is one of the most bizarre prison stints that I've ever seen. Now, granted, it's interesting because we see all these interviews with Manson, but you don't really hear a lot as to what their life's like every day in prison,
No.
So
yeah. I don't know how he got the stuff smuggled in, so I mean, it's not like, I don't think the hormones do that, easy to get. I mean, I remember, years ago when I was a kid hearing about it, there was a rumor going around that the state of Illinois had paid for some sort of hormone treatment, but then later on they said no, they didn't. There's hormones that were smuggled in. Somebody had got him into it, and they had to be injected. So, but he pretty much had free reign, I think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of the guards thought he was a celebrity too. Who knows?
It's really bizarre. I've always found that interesting how people are able to get things in. I have no idea how that works. Honestly, that's one of those things that just blows my mind.
The guards would have to get it in because they're the only ones not being searched.
Right.
So it's a matter of, did he make friends with one of our guards? They're like, hey, I'll help you out. Or I don't get it, And then, of course, being one of the interviewees from Mindhunter, the book, not necessarily the show, but yeah, I mean, these guys were considered, these guys were the case studies, and trying to figure out what makes these guys tick. But I think they're all very different, even though they're all multi-killers. The ones they picked seem to have their own kind of nuances. Each one you couldn't really compartmentalize any two of them together.
Yeah.
So it's very
everybody's different. I mean, we can put them in all sorts of categories, but at the end of the day, they all have their own things. Blake, you've been quiet for a little bit. You got anything you wanted to talk to Ray about? Because I don't want to take too much of his time, but.
Oh, well, no, that's okay, guys. I mean, everything's already pretty well been said, but I mean, I thought it was funny, the end of his life, being in prison and everything that went on, and then the little quote, which I'm sure you've already covered it, about him saying they knew how much fun I was having, they'd let me loose. Right. And I think it's just, he sort of became institutionalized there, I guess, at the end, sort of, and that's why he kind of, I guess, used his level of celebrity, for lack of a better word, to get the things, that he needed to have, like the hormones and, everything else, the cocaine or, whatever else it was he was getting smuggled in. But it's weird, I guess because he was, it's going to sound terrible, because he only killed women. If he'd have killed kids or something, it would have been different. But I guess so many people are in prison for murdering women, and that it wasn't that big of a, I mean, I'm not saying it's personally not a big deal, because it very much, it is, but I'm saying to them, murdering a woman and going to prison. It's like, oh, you only murdered a woman? I murdered 20 of them with a screwdriver.